This film camera is from the early 90s and essentially ancient by modern standards, but it shot possibly one of the most iconic sci-fi films in cinematic history. And guess what? Today you can get this piece of cinema history for $50. This is the Canon EOS 5. If you were born any time before the 2000s, you all have grown up with certain movies, and one of those for sure will have been The Matrix. Starring Keanu Reeves, who plays the protagonist Neo, who is prophesied to be mankind's savior against machines who have enslaved mankind in order to harvest their energy. This film is regarded as a landmark film in cinematic history, not only for its storyline, as many perceive it to be like an allegory for the way late-stage capitalism and the owners of capital have exploited the working classes, which on a side note is often exploited by charlatans to sell their dodgy online classes. However, it's also iconic for its VFX. You may have never even seen the film, but you've definitely seen countless parodies of its signature VFX. It completely bends the laws of time and space. It would have left Albert Einstein spiraling out of control because it contradicted everything he knew. The bullet time effect essentially perfectly blended two timelines together. The scene and characters would be moving on one timeline and the camera would be moving on a completely different one. It sounds confusing, so let me explain. The character would move super slow-mo, almost stationary, whilst other objects moved around them. In this case, bullets ripping past them in the air, all while the camera moved in normal time, weaving through the action. This iconic effect is seen in The Matrix during a rescue mission where Neo and Trinity are trying to rescue Morpheus whilst he's being tortured by the agents for information. Neo is a computer hacker and he is prophesied to be humanity's savior, has up until this point lacked confidence in his ability and to sort of fulfill the prophecy. And this scene is like a turning point in the film because it is at this point where Neo finds himself with no weapon on him, so no way to defend himself, and he's looking down the barrel of the agent's pistol. But at this point, he miraculously summons the courage, the confidence to trust his ability. And as the agent pulls the trigger and discharges a wall of bullets towards him, out of nowhere, Neo defies gravity and bends backwards further than is anatomically possible, whilst maintaining perfect balance. And you can hear high-pitched hisses of air going past Neo as he sort of elegantly evades the bullets by mere millimeters. Now, how on earth did they do this?
How did you do that?
Normally one might think that this is all CGI because to achieve the effect of the camera moving at a different speed to the characters would have meant that the camera itself was moving at like the speed of sound.
So that's not completely true. There is a way of doing the bullet time effect. However, you can only really do it in a practical way for a very, very short amount of movement. This guy, Cole Walliser, he is the... how do I call him? He's like he's the Glambot guy. What is the Glambot? The Glambot is this camera, this crazy camera that's attached to a robotic arm that you'll find at major red carpet shows, and they always just capture celebrities looking pretty, and there's the result. So you can see you've got the bullet time effect essentially, but it's only very, very short. So there you can see the Glambot is attached to a robotic arm up in the top left of the screen. And there you go, you can see it's moving on a robotic arm. And there you go, you see it shoots through the air really quickly, and then you get like this bullet time effect. The camera's moving at normal speed, or it gives the impression that it's moving at normal speed, and the characters, the environment is moving super slowly. As you can see, it's nowhere near as complex. The movements are nowhere near as dynamic as you'll see in the film The Matrix.
So how on earth did they do it? Enter the Canon EOS 5. This is what they did. They took 120 of these cameras and lined them up and took 120 still images, such that when you viewed these still images in sequence, it would create this illusion of a camera flying through the action. They had Neo in the center against a green screen held up by wires, so he was completely stationary, but he was in that, that iconic gravity-defying back bend. And after they'd taken the photos against the green screen, they would then take it into the post-production and add the environment. They added the location, and they added the CGI bullets moving past him. And by the way, this is a film camera. However, this was a film camera that made all film cameras up until this point look like McDonald's Happy Meal toys. For one, it can shoot as fast as 1/8,000th of a second, it has autofilm wind, auto film advance, reliable autofocus, albeit only like 4 AF points. But not just that, they had this thing called IAF. What is it, you ask? Well, basically, it is autofocus that is controlled by your eye. The way it worked is that it tracked your eye and it would move the autofocus point to wherever you were looking. Now, if that doesn't sound like something straight out of the Matrix, I don't know what is. Strangely though, even though this feature worked pretty well even back then, for some reason, they kind of discontinued it. It just disappeared. And it only made a comeback only very recently in 2021 with the EOS R3. So in some ways, this camera was way more advanced than its successes for 20 years. It even has a flash. And the crazy thing is that this wasn't even Canon's flagship camera at the time. It was a prosumer level camera, approximately the equivalent of today's R5. Now, I can't quite remember how I came across this camera, but it was shortly after I bought the Canon A1, which, if any of you do know, it is probably my all-time favorite camera. And after I got that camera, I just caught the film camera bug. And when I learned that this camera is a film camera that removed all the headaches of shooting film, I knew I had to get it. And I found it on eBay for a measly £40, which is roughly like $50, I think. Price fluctuates, so let's just say $50. I basically shoot it like a point and shoot. I leave it completely on auto, aperture priority. I only use one lens, the 50mm f1.8, the nifty 50. There are other EF lenses that I would love to use, and now that prices of them are going down, I don't know, I might pick one up. Who knows? But the auto wind, the auto advance, and the fact that you can also customize it. For example, I have mine customized such that the leader stays out of the film canister when you rewind it. And if you develop your own film, which I do, you will know how much of a godsend of a feature that is. Although the eye tracking AF is an awesome feature, I personally don't use it because you kind of have to calibrate it to your eye, and I just never got around to it. But my two favorite features of this camera are by far the 1/8000th of a second shutter speed and the built-in flash, because it enables me to shoot in any condition. So it could be the middle of summer, the longest day of summer, the brightest day of summer, and I can shoot wide open with 400 speed film. And then when it gets dark, I can keep shooting because of the flash. This shot only lasts 30 seconds, but its legacy will live on forever. And it's all because of this camera.
Dodge this.